Families are supposed to stick together, right? Except when yours treats you like an overdraft facility with legs. This is a story about loyalty, betrayal, and a 55-year-old man named Dylan who somehow thinks he's a messiah of mortgages. Spoiler, he's not. What follows is equal parts tragic, ridiculous, and uncomfortably relatable. Because let's be honest, we've all got a James in our lives. Or worse, we're the James. So grab a coffee, brace yourself, and let me walk you through how I went from family ATM to family enemy number one, and why I don't regret a single bloody step. Dinner was going swimmingly. If by swimmingly, you mean a quiet evening slowly circling the drain. We just finished roast beef, the air thick with gravy fumes and the faintly tragic scent of mashed potatoes cooling into wallpaper paste. Classic Iowa spring. Windows open, birds chirping, fresh breeze, family trying to pretend we're normal. And then James, my 30-year-old son, emphasis on 30, decided to liven things up. He slammed his fork down like he was auditioning for a role in Utensils, the musical, and declared at full volume, "You're a loser, Dad, but Mom's new husband isn't." Lovely. Nothing says family bonding like being publicly demoted by your own child. I said nothing, because apparently silence is my superpower, but inside I was offended, humiliated, and ever so slightly considering faking my own death. Adeline gasped, bless her. She's 28, professional peacekeeper, probably qualified for sainthood just for surviving her brother. She tried to smooth things over while James puffed himself up like a self-righteous pigeon. He went on about Dylan, the shiny new stepdad with his big business deals, fancy cars, and apparently a fan club that includes my son. James even said he might start calling Dylan father. Yes, father. Because what better way to drive a knife into your dad's chest than with the dulcet tones of Oedipus meets LinkedIn? Meanwhile, the family photo behind him, all of us, 10 years ago, smiling at a barbecue like fools who still believed in things like marriage and loyalty, stared down at me like some cruel museum exhibit titled, "Before It All Went to Hell." I wanted to say something sharp, something brilliant, but instead, I clutched my water glass like it was the last life raft on the Titanic. Adeline finally snapped. She reminded James, who'd actually raised us, who kept his family stitched together with duct tape and bad coffee. Spoiler, not Dylan with his shiny Mercedes. James, of course, was unmoved. He pushed his play away like it had personally offended him, then stood up and launched into his TED Talk on how Dad is holding me back. According to him, I was obsolete. Yes, obsolete. Like I'm some dusty VHS tape clogging up the attic, while Dylan is streaming in 4K Ultra HD. I flashed back to the time I handed James the keys to a brand new Honda Civic. Not glamorous, but reliable, which is more than I can say for him. He'd sniffed and said, "Dylan's got a Mercedes." Of course he did, because nothing screams adulthood like comparing your free car to someone else's. Anyway, James stormed off in a flurry of self-righteous footsteps. Adeline gave me a reassuring hand squeeze, told me not to listen, told me I was the best father ever. Sweet girl. She means it. But let's be honest, it's hard to feel like Father of the Year when your son's auditioning for Dylan's fan club president. And then, silence. The roast beef congealing into something that could legally be classified as a crime scene. The mashed potatoes slumping on their plates. And me, sitting there like the punchline to a joke no one asked to hear and why mine was racing, or more accurately, hobbling, trying to stitch together the betrayal. How had it come to this? James, 30 years old and still living rent-free in a house I bought for him, driving the car I kept running like some tragic pit crew mechanic, while simultaneously polishing Dylan's halo like it was a family heirloom. Ah, yes, Dylan. 55 years old, smug as a fox in a henhouse, with his tailored suits and the kind of grin that makes you want to file a noise complaint. He swooped in after the divorce, whispering in Ann's ear about how he'd elevate the family. And apparently by elevate, he meant climbing over my corpse while holding a martini. Meanwhile, I've been the one sweating in the Iowa heat, pouring concrete, literally building houses, including the ones they now sneer at. But Dylan had business deals. Because nothing says success like making your money sitting down while someone else lifts cement blocks until their spine sounds like bubble wrap. The family photo on the wall wasn't just mocking me anymore. It was practically laughing. The clock ticked in the kitchen, each second sounding like it was auditioning for the role of dramatic reminder that you've wasted your life. I didn't clear the dishes, didn't move, just let the anger stew, which, to be fair, is the only thing I've ever let simmer successfully. Every late-night shift, every skip holiday so James could chase his latest get-rich-never scheme, it all clattered around my head until it clicked. Enough? If James want to call me a loser, fine. But losers stop paying your mortgage. Losers stop fixing your car. Losers, it turns out, have boundaries. Who knew? I grabbed a beer, stepped outside. The deck creaked, like even it was judging me for putting up with this for so long. Stars scattered across the sky, twinkling with all the smugness of people who don't pay rent. I popped the cap, foam fizzing over, symbolic really of the bitterness spilling out of me. Took a long sip. Bitter beer for a bitter man. Cheers. The chair I sat on was one I'd built myself years ago. Paint-chipped, weather-beaten, but still standing. Much like me, really. Not pretty, but still here, refusing collapse out of sheer stubbornness. I thought back to when I bought James that house. He'd begged me for stability, as if I was some government grant. I dipped into my savings, gave him the keys, told him it was his chance. His credit was already shot, but no matter, Dad to the rescue. Within months, I was footing the bill entirely. Just until I land something big, he said. Spoiler, he landed nothing but my patience in the bin. Then came last Christmas. I handed him money for car repairs, and he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Thanks, but Dylan's investing in my ideas." Oh, yes, Dylan again. The man's name floats around this family, like a bad smell. I give my son money. Dylan gives him fairy dust. Guess who wins? But out there under the stars, something hardened. I realized I'd been the foundation while Dylan played hero. I was the scaffolding, the unpaid intern, the background character. Enough. If James thought life with Dylan was so grand, he could go and live it without my wallet as a safety net. I crushed the empty can, the metal crumpling in my fist like a punctuation mark. Dawn began to creep in, turning the sky that dull gray of Monday mornings and bad decisions. I didn't feel tired, just resolute. By sunrise, I was up. No breakfast, no lingering over toast like some tragic poet. Just grabbed my keys, cold metal in my hand, and walked out the door with one simple thought ringing in my head. If I'm the loser, let's see how my son does without losing me. Sliding into my old pickup, the engine coughed to life with the same weary sigh I make when standing up too fast. Davenport was quiet, mist clinging to windscreens, dew sparkling on lawns like nature's way of reminding you it can still outshine your entire life. I drove to the neighborhood I'd once chosen for James because it was safe and close. Two qualities my son has never valued, judging by his life choices. Pulling up outside his house. Yes, the one I bought for him, the Honda Civic gleamed smugly in the drive, freshly washed with my money. Nothing like seeing your own generosity parked right in front of you, shining like a middle finger in the sunlight. Boots crunching on gravel. I gave the door 3 solid knocks. The kind of knock that says, "I'm not here for tea, son." Inside, shuffling, locks turning, and then James appeared. Hair sticking up, pajamas crumpled, eyes bleary. He looked less like a grown man and more like a raccoon caught raiding bins. "Dad, what are you doing here so early?" he mumbled. I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Car keys, James. Hand them over." He blinked, then let out a laugh so forced it could have applied for a job at the local theater. "What?" "No, that's my car. You gave it to me?" Oh, bless him. Selective memory runs in the family. I pulled the registration out of my pocket, crisp and folded like a divorce paper you keep just in case. "Gave it to you?" "No, son. It's registered in my name. I've paid for every bill, every repair, every oops, Dad. I forgot the oil change. So, technically it's mine, and I'm taking it back." James gripped the doorframe, trying to look intimidating. Unfortunately, pajamas with cartoon ducks don't exactly scream authority. You can't just take it. That's theft. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. No, son. You keeping it without permission. That's theft. Now, give me the keys before I call the police. I'll let them explain it to you, since you're so fond of lectures. Across the street, Mrs. What's-Her-Name had stopped watering her petunias, hose dangling, eyes locked on the drama, like it was the best telly she'd seen all week. Bird song trilled in the background, completely oblivious to the father-son standoff happening on the suburban battlefield. Finally, James vanished inside with all the grace of a sulking teenager. He re-emerged moments later, keys dangling from his trembling fingers. He thrust them at me like they were contaminated. Fine, take it. But this is low, Dad. Real low. Dylan's right about you. You're just bitter. Oh, yes, Dylan. The oracle of all wisdom. Apparently, I now needed his approval to breathe. I pocketed the keys without a word, slid into the driver's seat, and started the engine. It purred like a cat, probably because I had paid for its last tune-up. Funny how that works. In the mirror, James stood on the porch, arms crossed, fuming. A tragic figure, really, like Hamlet, but without the Shakespearean depth or basic employment. I drove away, streets of Davenport rolling out before me, maples budding along the sidewalks, river glinting in the morning sun. For the first time in years, I felt momentum. The dashboard clock ticked forward, steady, like it was cheering me on. I parked in front of the bank, asphalt still cool from the night, grabbed the folder from the glove box, statements, deeds, everything neatly organized, because unlike my son, I actually planned things. Through the glass doors I went, soft whoosh behind me, greeted by a lobby so quiet you could hear your regrets echo. My boots clicked on the tile as I approached the counter, where a young woman in a neat blouse looked up, fresh-faced, probably still believed in things like hope and mortgages that get paid on time. I almost envied her. Almost. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" the teller asked, all polite professionalism, as if she wasn't about to witness a grown man torch his own family tree. I spread my ID and mortgage papers out on the counter, like I was playing the saddest game of poker imaginable. I need to cancel the automatic payments on this account. Property I own, but, the resident arrangement has evolved. She nodded and started typing, nails clacking away. I drifted, because of course I did, right back to the day I'd signed those papers. James had been there, slouched in a chair at the state office, scrolling his phone like I was wasting his time. "Thanks, Dad. This place is perfect," he'd said without looking up. Perfect. Like it was a pizza delivery, not a house I'd bled overtime hours to afford. And was already off with Dylan by then, naturally, but I still wanted to give James stability. And by stability, I apparently meant a long-term hotel stay courtesy of Dad. "Everything checks out," the teller chirped, printing out a form. "Just sign here to stop the transfers. We'll notify the resident by mail." Resident, as if my son was a lodger rather than an overgrown houseplant with Wi-Fi. I signed with a firm stroke, the kind you save for divorce papers and, apparently, eviction forms. That's when my phone buzzed. Of course it did. The universe wasn't about to let me enjoy 5 seconds of quiet triumph. I stepped aside, hiding near a potted plant, which, by the way, looked healthier than James has in years, and answered, "Dad, what the hell?" James's voice blasted through before I could say hello. "The bank just called. You're evicting me? This is my house." Oh, the audacity. "It's my house, James. My name on the deed. My money paying for it. You were never on the paperwork. You were a guest. A very expensive guest." His voice cracked, sliding from fury to desperation, like a bad karaoke performance. "You can't do this. Where am I supposed to go? This is cruel. You're ruining my life over one comment." "One comment?" I echoed, as a woman in the lobby pretended not to eavesdrop. "Try years of freeloading. Years of me working while you lean on Dylan, like he's the second coming of Warren Bloody Buffett." He tried to backpedal. "Wait, Dad, I mean it. Dylan's just been helping, but..." I hung up. Click. Nothing dramatic, no speech. Just pure, delicious silence, though his panic still echoed in my head like a badly written soap opera. Back home, I set the bank paperwork on the counter like a knight dropping his shield after battle, poured myself a coffee, and sat in my chair, the one that's molded to my body after years of stress naps. Steam rose from the mug, grounding me, if only for a second. Then another buzz. Of course. Because apparently, today was Let's All Ring Dad Day. This time it was Adeline. Dad, James is freaking out. You cut him off? What's going on? I texted back with all the energy of a man who's done explaining himself. Just reclaiming what's mine. He'll survive. Before I could set the phone down, it rang again. Adeline, voice full of worry. Dad, talk to me. James is going on about the car and the house. He says he's going to Dylan for help. And she hesitated, then dropped it. Dad, Dylan's already saying he's going to handle you. Something about teaching you a lesson. Ah, yes, of course. Because what's family drama without the smug stepdad inserting himself like he's auditioning for the role of mafia boss in a low-budget film? I sipped my coffee, bitterness matching the situation. A lesson, was it? Wonderful. Can't wait. Are you okay? Adeline asked, her voice careful, like she wasn't sure if I was about to explode or just sign myself into a coma. I kept my grip on the coffee mug loose, as though I was internally imagining smashing it against Dylan's perfectly moisturized forehead. Dylan. Always Dylan. The 55-year-old snake in a suit, slithering around the edges of my life since the divorce, popping up at every family moment like mold in a damp bathroom. I paced the window, watching kids ride their bikes down the street, carefree, squealing with laughter. Must be nice, I thought. Imagine being that innocent again, instead of a grown man debating psychological warfare with his ex-wife's smug new husband. I'm fine, sweetheart. I lied. The international dad phrase for I'm not fine at all, but don't ask me to unpack it. Tell me more. What exactly did James say about Dylan? She hesitated. I could hear her breathing. Always a bad sign. He said Dylan offered to cover the mortgage, but only if James cuts ties with you completely. And Dylan laughed about it. Said you've been a pushover too long. James is actually buying it, Dad. Of course he was. Why wouldn't he? Why rely on a man who's paid your bills, fixed your car, and bailed you out for a decade when you could chase after a walking ego in a silk tie? I looked at the faded photo on the mantel. 4th of July years ago, before the implosion. There we were, all four of us smiling like we had a clue what the future held. I remembered James's birthday not long after, Dylan showing up uninvited, dripping money like it was aftershave, handing James a watch that made my gift a practical toolkit. Looked like I bought it from a clearance bin at Despair. Your dad's great at building houses, Dylan had quipped with that nauseating wink. But I'm here to build futures. And James had grinned like he'd just been handed the keys to the kingdom, while I'd swallowed the insult and paid his bloody tuition the next month. Classic. Thanks for the heads up, love. I told Adeline, my voice firming. Dylan's playing games, but I'm not backing down. This isn't cruelty. It's fairness. I know, Dad. Just be careful. James sounded serious. We hung up. I stared at old texts from James. All timestamped a request for money. Not a single thanks. Not one. It wasn't betrayal anymore. It was just arithmetic. Pacing. Floorboards creaking under me. I scrolled through emails, noticed the patterns I'd ignored before, Dylan weaving himself into conversations. Family group chats mysteriously excluding me. Little digs that stacked up like unpaid bills. The alliances were forming, quick and ugly, and apparently I was a designated villain. Perfect. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, and, because why not? The Holy Trinity wasn't complete without her chiming in. The living room shrank, coffee steam fading as I answered. Roy, what on earth are you doing? She burst, frantic, accusatory, voice climbing like a smoke alarm. James is hysterical. You took his car, you stopped the house payments. Have you lost your mind? Hello to you too, and I said, gripping the windowsill so I wouldn't throw the phone. No, I haven't lost anything. I reclaimed what's mine. The car I bought, the house I paid for. James has had plenty of time to step up. But he's your son, she spat. You can't just throw him out like this. Dylan and I are worried sick. He's talking about getting lawyers if you don't fix this. Ah, yes. Dylan again. Pulling strings like some second-rate Bond villain. Except instead of world domination, his grand plan was apparently irritating me to death. I walked a slow circle around the room, past the mantel photo, past the ghost of my own patience. I remembered signing extra checks after the divorce. Braces, school trips, holidays I couldn't join because someone had to fund them. Meanwhile, and gush about Dylan's big ideas for kids. He had big ideas. I had big bills. Funny how that worked. Lawyers. I said evenly, voice cool steel. Let him try. Everything's in my name, and every brick, every bill. This isn't cruelty. It's respect. I built everything James stands on. If Dylan wants to teach me a lesson, he can get in line behind life itself. N's voice softened, like she thought pleading would suddenly erase 20 years of history. Roy, please. For old time's sake. James needs stability. Dylan says you're being unreasonable. He's willing to help, but only if you back off. Oh! Dylan's willing to help. Is he? What a saint. Let's all gather round and nominate him for Stepdad of the Year. Except his help always comes with strings, and not the kind you tie up a gift with. No! His strings come wrapped in contracts, smugness, and the faint smell of overpriced cologne. I stopped pacing, jaw tightening. Clouds gathered outside, dramatic backdrop of my life falling apart. Perfect. Tell them both I'm done being the silent provider. James either learns now or he'll be leaning forever. And his voice cracked. You don't get it. He's threatening to cut you out completely. We're family, Roy. Fix this before it's too late. And then she hung up, her dramatic mic drop moment. The silence rang louder than her words, which, considering she'd been shrieking, was quite an achievement. I set the phone down, grabbed a notebook, flipped to a crisp blank page like I was about to draft a Magna Carta, and started scribbling strategies. Call it war prep, call it therapy, call it middle-aged pettiness. Whatever. Notebook still open on the passenger seat. I fired up the old truck. The engine's growl cut through the Davenport quiet, and off I went. The spring sun hung low, long shadows stretching across the dashboard, like the universe trying to say, yes, Roy, it's all going downhill. At a red light, I scrolled through my contacts until my thumb landed on my lawyer's number, an old mate from when construction deals went sour. Nothing screams friendship like shared lawsuits. No time for hesitation. Alliances were closing in. I needed fortifications. His office was in some modest brick building. Smelled of burnt coffee and stale paperwork, which felt comfortingly honest. The receptionist waved me through, and soon I was shaking hand with Tom. Solid handshake, cluttered desk, glasses that screamed. I charged by the hour. Roy, what's the trouble? He asked. Where to begin? I laid it all out. The car repossession, the mortgage halt, the threats from James and Dylan. My voice stayed level, but my jaw had other ideas. I need to know my protections. Everything's in my name, but they're waving lawyers about. And Dylan's business. Any cracks in that shiny empire? Tom tapped his pen like he was composing a symphony. Smart move, consulting now. The car and house? Solid. Your name's clear. If they push emotional distress, we've got records of your support. As for Dylan, his companies have a few tax liens. Nothing catastrophic, but enough leverage if he escalates. I'll draft cease and desist letters, just in case. Music to my ears. Finally, someone who wasn't related to me telling me I wasn't insane. He probed further, sharp as a foundation inspection. Shared accounts? Joint ventures? No, but oh, the memories of Dylan slithering in with his business cards, telling James, stick with me. Kid, your dad's good with hammers, but I build empires. And me? I'd smiled tightly and signed yet another check for rent. Tom's strategy crystallized things. File for full title transfer on the house. Force their hand. I left with a folder of draft documents. Footsteps echoing down the hallway like the soundtrack to my solitude. Empowered, yes, but also exhausted. And because one lawyer isn't enough for this Greek tragedy, I drove straight to my accountant's office. The truck rattled over potholes I'd memorized years ago. Ellen greeted me with a nod, her desk a sea of spreadsheets. "Roy, long time. Sit. Tell me what fresh hell you dragged in." I unloaded. The finances, the transfers of mortgages, Dylan circling like a corporate shark smelling blood. She peered over her glasses. Keys clacking. "Your accounts are clean. No joints with James. But Dylan's firm? I've seen their filings. Irregularities. Dodgy deductions. If you're thinking audit flags, well, the IRS loves a good tip." I sat back, almost laughing. Dylan might build empires, but it turns out even empires can crumble when the taxman shows up. Her tone was all business now, clinical and probing, like she'd been reading the manual on how to explain why you're suddenly not the favorite parent. "Why now?" she asked. "Family fallout. Respect overdue," I said, scribbling as if legalese might somehow soothe the wound. "Freeze ancillary credits," she suggested. "Anonymous reporting channels. Tie up the loose ends." She printed summaries while I let my mind wander, back to a winter years ago when I wired money into James's brilliant startup that, spoiler alert, turned out to be a hobby disguised as capitalism. Dylan, of course, was there in the background, advising over cocktails and charging consulting fees my generosity had subsidized. Small world, even smaller morals. Ellen, my accountant/moral compass, turned resentment into spreadsheet strategy. "Secure your pension first," she said. "If they sue, countersue for repayment of gifts." Solid advice. Nothing soft or sentimental. Just good, efficient revenge planning. By the time I left, the sun was doing that sentimental dip you see in films that always makes people make catastrophically dramatic decisions. My folder was heavier, my head clearer. Strategy coalesced like congealed gravy, unpleasant but effective. Driving home along the river, checklist running through my skull like an audiobook on loop. Lawyer, check. Accountant, check. Next day implementations, double check. The truck felt different. The cabin filled with a purpose that was part righteous fury, part middle-aged practicality. Then my phone pinged, because of course it did. That evening at my desk, the house quiet, lamp throwing a warm cone over papers, I sorted the folder like a general arranging his troops. Legal left, financial right, petty vengeance in the middle where it belonged. I logged into the portal, fingers flicking over keys. Title transfer queued, addresses double-checked, heartbeat steady. Hover, click, done. Confirmation pinged like a small victory bell. The certified letters followed, envelopes sealed, stamps pressed down with the ceremony of someone who'd learned to ritualize their dignity. Old memories kept intruding. Dylan at Ann's remarriage party, toasting in that way smug people toast, like he'd invented happiness. James leaning in, hanging on every syllable as if the man had discovered fire. That champagne fizz stuck in my teeth for years. Next step, the anonymous IRS tip Ellen suggested. Questionable deductions, suspicious filings, small things that would make accountants frown, and, if you're lucky, auditors twerk. I typed, submitted, hovered over the send button like a monk deciding whether to sin. Sent. The glow of my monitor reflected back, steady as a northern star. Good. I watched the neighborhood wind down. Kids called in for dinner. Porch lights blinked on like tiny judgmental eyes. In the inbox, subtle signs. A bank confirmation about holds, tracking for the certified mail. Every small action felt like laying another brick in a wall. Tension coiled, neat and useful. Then the phone lit up. James. Urgent. My desk vibrated like a trapped wasp. An email pinged at the same moment. Subject in all caps, as if capital letters could do the heavy lifting of his arrogance. Cease your interference immediately. Dylan's terse little sermon poured out. Threats of lawsuits for harassment, claims I'd overstepped on family assets, legal jargon stitched together like a cheap tie. He accused me of dragging his business into my petty grudge. Memo to Dylan. When you build an empire on other people's goodwill, petty grudges tend to come with interest. Before I could polish my reply into something particularly British and cutting, the phone rang. Dylan himself. The sound of his name on my screen felt like a bell that only rang for calamity. "Roy, you old fool," he boomed, all glint and business polish trying to sear through the speaker. "What do you think you're doing? Freezing accounts, meddling in my life? You think I don't know you're behind James's mess? You'll regret this." I stood and started pacing, because walking helps me think and also makes me look like a man in control. Streetlights clicked on outside, Davenport falling into that dusk designed solely for melodrama. Petty? I called back, amused to spite myself. I reclaimed what's mine. Years of my sweat funded this little business empire of yours. Threaten away, my lawyer's ready. He barked a laugh, nasty as gravel. Your lawyer? Please. I've got teams that eat guys like you for breakfast. Back off, or I'll bury you in court costs. James doesn't deserve this. You're destroying him out of jealousy. Jealousy. The word landed like a thrown glove. I remember Dylan hosting a barbecue at his sprawling house, the one with the lawn so immaculate it screamed, "I have staff." He handed James a business card with the kind of smile that gets photographed and framed in villain biographies. "Stick with me," he'd said. "Your dad's good with hammers, but I build empires." And there it was, the joke. I'd been building things with my hands. He'd been building stories with his mouth. The difference, it turns out, matters when someone needs a mortgage paid. Try me, I said simply. Bring your teams. Bring your threats. I've got records, receipts, witnesses. I built the foundation for this family. If you want to test that, be my guest. He spat something under his breath, a promise of ruin, of lawyers, of ruinous games. I hung up before the rest of his bravado, could fill my living room like cheap perfume. Coffee gone cold, folder open, lamp burning. Outside, the night settled over the river like a soft accusation. Inside, I felt oddly unburdened. The wall was going up, slow, practical, inevitable. Let Dylan bring whatever fire he'd sharpened in his boardrooms. I'd bring concrete, receipts, and a stubbornness that had survived 3 decades of poor decisions and worse haircuts. If this was a war, it would be litigated in paperwork, not punches. And somehow that felt far worse and far, far better. James was laughing at Dylan's jokes, the kind of polite chuckle reserved for second-rate comedians and dodgy uncles at weddings, while ignoring my call about an actual job lead I'd lined up. Typical. I built bridges. He burned them from marshmallows. And now apparently I'm destroying him. No, son. Destroying would take effort. I'm merely teaching you the revolutionary concept of responsibility. Radical, I know. The call with Dylan escalated into his usual greatest hits album. Threats, restraining orders, countersuits, all performed at volume 11. I cut him off mid-rant. Save it for the judge. Click. Silence. Sweet, blessed silence. For about 3 seconds. Then came the pounding at the front door, heavy enough to suggest either debt collectors or a particularly passionate Jehovah's Witness. Through the peephole, James, disheveled, hair wild, eyes blazing with that cocktail of rage and self-pity. Lovely. Just what every father dreams of. I cracked the door, chain still on, because I do value my furniture, and sighed. James, not a good time. Which, of course, was taken as an invitation. He shoved, though it groaned like it wanted to resign. Let me in, Dad. You've gone too far. Took my car, my house, and now Dylan says audits. You're ruining everything. Inside, the living room lamp threw dramatic shadows over his face, like he'd been rehearsing for a low-budget Greek tragedy. Ruining? I said, no, son, you did that yourself. Years of leaning on me. Calling Dylan father while treating me like your overdraft. That's the ruin. Own it. He jabbed a finger, trembling with fury. You don't get it. Dylan's helping. He's offering loans. A place to stay. You're just bitter because Mum chose better. Oh, excellent. The Mum chose better monologue. Always a crowd pleaser. I remember that barbecue years back, and whispering smugly, Dylan's good for us, Roy. Move on. I had moved on to the exciting full-time career funding James's life from a safe emotional distance. I looked him dead in the eye. Chose better? I chose you. Every paycheck, every sacrifice. Dylan's help is control dressed up as kindness. Walk away now or learn the hard way. James stormed about knocking a photo frame askew. Because why not punctuate an argument with light vandalism? The old family portrait tilted, irony dripping off the wall. Consequences? I'm homeless because of you. Fix this or I'll join Dylan's lawsuit. We'll take everything. By all means, sue. I said, calm as a monk. Truth's on my side. You might not like it, but facts are stubborn things. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled like it was trying to escape. From the window, I watched him climb into Dylan's lone, shiny car. Tires screeched, the soundtrack of entitlement. The night air settled, humming with unfinished business. Morning brought the postman with a stack of envelopes looking far too official for comfort. Sunlight glinted on government seals like medals awarded for bad life choices. I sliced one open at the kitchen table. Foreclosure notice. James's house officially entering the death spiral. Eviction timeline clear, stark, merciless. Later, I drove by, moving trucks in the drive, men hauling boxes while James stood there with slumped shoulders, directing traffic like a dethroned king. The once neat lawn was overrun with weeds, nature reclaiming what James had already surrendered. I didn't stop, just slowed enough to observe. Quiet satisfaction, sharp and bitter, settled in my chest. Phone buzzed mid-drive. James again. I pulled over by the riverbank, water slapping gently against the shore, mocking the drama. His voice cracked, raw desperation replacing last night's fury. Dad, please. The eviction notice came. I'm packing everything. Dylan's place is only temporary. Help me out. Just this once. I gripped the steering wheel, leather worn from years of holding everything together. A memory surfaced. James as a boy, clutching my hand during a blackout, looking at me like I could fix the entire universe. And I had, back then, generator wired, safety net built. But that boy had grown into a man who mistook generosity for obligation. Just this once. I said, it's been a lifetime of just this once, James. Time to learn the lesson. Build your own safety net. He scrambled, bargaining like a gambler down to his last chip. I'll apologize. Cut Dylan out. Anything. Don't let me end up on the street. The plea tugged. I'll admit it, but apologies don't rebuild respect. They're just receipts for damage, already done. Stand up on your own, James. Call me when you're ready to do that. And I hung up. The river flowed on, indifferent. Consequences don't pause for tears. A quick text of my lawyer confirmed it. The wall I'd built was holding. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling. So, the proceedings rolled forward. James still trying to stall like a drunk man arguing with a parking warden. Shockingly, it didn't work. Paperwork piled in my desk drawer, whispering like ghosts of bad decisions. Each sheet another polite reminder that actions do, in fact, have consequences. Imagine that. But my thoughts weren't lingering on James anymore. He was yesterday's crisis, today's punchline. No, my mind had drifted to Dylan, the empire builder, the snake in Armani. And wouldn't you know it, the tax man was circling. Whispers of discrepancies, dodgy deductions, irregularities, which is financial speak for oops, caught you nicking biscuits from the jar. The net was tightening, and for once, not around my neck. Folder in hand, I marched into a quiet cafe in Davenport. Rain threatening, latte steaming. Patrons murmuring over their newspapers. The sort of scene where you expect life-changing decisions, or at least an overpriced croissant. I rang Tom, my lawyer, while scrawling notes on a napkin. Professional, I know. Roy, updates, he said. Tom doesn't do small talk. I like that about him. Ellen's found Dylan's creative accounting. I replied, flipping pages like a man who actually enjoys this. We're talking deductions so dodgy they should have come with a ski mask. Tom chuckled. Anonymous tip to the IRS. I'll file a formal complaint too. Double tap. I nodded into my latte like a man being serenaded. Sweet music. Because if Dylan loved building empires, I was about to introduce him to the demolition crew. Memory lane decided to crash the party. Dylan years ago. Glass raised at some family do, smirking, to building legacies. James glowing beside him. Me, in the background. Pockets empty. Hands raw from wiring funds for their latest holiday. Dylan, the visionary. Me, the invisible wallet. Well, legacy's about to get audited, mate. Later that day, the first crack spread like gossip. Local news clip hinting at compliance issues. Clients pulling out. Dylan not answering my calls. When he finally left a voicemail, his tone was all slippery charm with a hint of panic. Roy, stop this. We can settle quietly. Oh, bless. The man who never shut up, now begging for silence. I didn't apply. Instead, I scrolled through public records, spotting his desperate attempts to shuffle assets like a magician with arthritis. Too late. The penalties were mounting, his empire wobbling like jelly on fine china. By evening, I was home. Paper stacked, lamp glowing, the air thick with that rarest of scents. Victory. Then came the knock. Not the angry debt collector kind. Softer, tentative, almost apologetic. James, standing there on the porch, hunched like a schoolboy called him by the headmaster. I let him in. He shuffled to the mantel, eyes flicking at the old family photo, like it might bite him. His voice cracked, low, halting, weighed down by something unfamiliar. Remorse. Dad, I messed up. The eviction. Dylan's place. It all hit me. I took everything for granted. Called you a loser while living off your work. I'm sorry. And there it was. The apology I've been owed for years, decades even. Part of me wanted to laugh. Because really, James, now you see it? After the car, the house, the lawsuit threats? But another part, well, it remembered the boy who once held my hand during a blackout, trusting I could fix everything. The trouble is, fixing everything is exactly what broke me. Truly, that's what he said. Like it was a grand confession, worthy of a cathedral choir. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, letting the silence marinate. Because sometimes silence says, really? After all this? Louder than words ever could. Flashback time. James as a kid, grinning like a loon when I hammered together his treehouse. We sat under summer skies, laughing at nothing, sticky with ice cream and splinters. Back then, he thought I was some kind of superhero. Now, he spent years trying to trade me in for Dylan, the Poundland Tony Stark. Words are a start, son, I said, because apparently I still had to play dad instead of debt collector. But actions count. You've leaned on crutches so long. They've worn grooves into the floor. He nodded like he was at a funeral, then pulled out an envelope. Not cash for once, a letter. His handwriting, folded neatly. Points for effort. Shame it took the apocalypse. I know. No more handouts, he said. Got a job interview tomorrow. Manual labor, like you started with. Ah, yes. Manual labor. The romanticized slog. Nothing like a shovel in the mud to make you appreciate your choices. But at least it wasn't Dylan's latest get-rich-quick seminar. Speaking of which, James added, Dylan's pulling away after the business hits. I see now he was using me to get at you. Congratulations, son. Only took you a decade, an eviction notice, and a complete implosion of your surrogate father's empire to connect the dots. Truly, detective work worthy of a gold star. Just then, the door creaked open again. Adeline, always the grown-up in the room. Her key turned softly, her presence steady. She glanced between us like a referee walking into round 12. Dad. James texted. Everything okay? James actually cracked, voice trembling. Sis, I'm owning up. Dad's right. I need to build my own way. Well, there was not redemption exactly, but let's call it the budget version. We ended up sitting round the table, eating sandwiches I'd made. Nothing fancy, ham, cheese, a bit of mustard, if you must know. But I laid the plates out like it was a royal banquet, because sometimes the smallest rituals are all that hold the universe together. Adeline nodded, ever the diplomat. It's a step, James. Dad's always been fair. I forgave him there, sort of. A handshake. No hugs, no violins. Just a firm grip that said, family, yes. Free ride, no. Dylan, meanwhile, had gone quiet. Funny how the man who never stopped talking went radio silent the moment the spotlight hit his dodgy accounts. When James finally left, promising change, which I'll believe when pigs start filing tax returns, Adeline hugged me. Proud of you, Dad. And for once, I let myself believe her. Later, I filed away the old papers. The rustle felt like a chapter closing. I stepped into the backyard, looked up at the stars, and raised an invisible glass. Not to victory, not to revenge, just to survival. Because some stories don't end with fireworks. Sometimes they just end with you standing there, alive, breathing, and not entirely broken. And that, frankly, is enough. If you enjoyed this little disaster of a saga, do the usual. Like subscribe, leave a comment. Or don't. I'm not your boss. But if you want to hear the next story, you know where to click. Cheers for watching.